Joining us now, Karl Neddenien. He is a spokesperson at the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. And we're trying to get this pipeline going. Got all kinds of legal things going on, but there's been some breakthroughs. Hey, Karl, welcome.
Thank you very much, John. It's a pleasure to be here this morning.
Welcome to the pipeline. Look, we've been fighting this battle for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, I don't know, since I've been on the air, it seems, 6 or 7 years now, going through all the approvals and the DEQ and all that, and FERC, and it started, now it's stopped. We got lawsuits, and we've got legal challenges, and right through my backyard where I live, not exactly the backyard, but a couple houses down, I live in Chesapeake with my family. You know, the pipeline started, and now it's stopped, and we were all excited, and now it's been on hold again. Karl, give us an update. What exactly is the status now of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline legally in our area?
Sure. A quick background. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline is a 600-mile-long interstate underground pipeline that is going to carry natural gas from West Virginia through Virginia and North Carolina to meet some really urgent needs for energy. The natural gas it transports is going to be used by public utilities to generate electricity. It'll be used by people to heat their homes and also to power local businesses. So this is an important, critical part of the infrastructure rebirth, if you will, administration. Where it stands right now, we have 2 permits that are in litigation. We're awaiting to do the oral arguments with the Fourth Circuit Court here in Richmond. And meanwhile, we have voluntarily suspended all construction activities along the entire 600-mile pathway, even though one of the cases involves only 100 miles of pipeline. And some of the being able to do the oral arguments to support the decisions, the permits that were suspended, so that we can get back to work and put some blue-collar workers, highly trained people back, getting some paychecks and putting food on the table.
All right, so 100 miles of the pipeline now is suspended because of a lawsuit. Just walk us through. There's so many of these suits, I lost track of them. So is that really the only thing now that you're dealing with, is that 100-mile lawsuit from that one federal judge? Just walk us through the logistics of that so we understand it.
Sure, and I'm going to have to keep it at a high level because once I get down in the details, it actually confuses me too. We have 2 permits that are put on stay or vacated by the Fourth Circuit Court. One of them affects the entire 600-mile pipeline route, but the creatures, the animals that are the subject of the case exist only in a 100-mile stretch in Virginia. But because it's a blanket order, we have voluntarily suspended all construction while we try to get clarification, and the arguments are going to take place in March. And this is something that's been taking place across the country as part of a really well-organized, extremely well-funded effort to essentially stop development of any energy infrastructure. Every project you see, permits are issued after extensive review of just amazing amounts of information. A permit is issued, and immediately an appeal is filed. Another decision is reached. The original permit was okay. Another appeal is filed for the decision of the appeal. It's a never-ending process, and it's expensive, and it's hurting people.
So,
go ahead.
It's costing us jobs. It's costing us energy. This is a never-ending source of litigation. Where does this end, though? What's the end game? Does it go to the Supreme Court finally? I mean, what's the end game here?
Well, all you have to do is take it one step at a time. We are going to the Fourth Circuit Court here in Richmond to do the appeal, argue our case, and based on the results, whatever comes back from the court, we'll decide on the next court of action. But we are going to build the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. It is necessary. People need it. Businesses need it. We've got to have that energy down in North Carolina and in Virginia. Just when the weather gets really cold like it is now, the natural gas pipeline infrastructure is just squeezed. It can't carry enough gas to meet all the demand. In some cases, businesses have to be shut down so that the gas can flow to customers and homes to keep them warm and safe. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, also, there's hundreds of jobs of construction on the pipeline, great paying jobs that go on. pipeline is in, what it does is it's a magnet to attract manufacturing companies that relocate along the pipeline, Karl, so they can tap into it and get the energy, which creates additional economic opportunity and jobs in depressed areas along the 600-mile pipeline run. So, but I guess the frustration for the layman like myself following this that just wants the jobs in the pipeline done is that, okay, so you go through the hearing in the Fourth Circuit. How many judges? Is it a 3-judge panel?
John, I think it's 15 judges. We're looking for an en banc review. That means that all the judges in the district